What's up, TKO Nation? Welcome back to the TKO Podcast. Make sure you tune in.
Technical Knockout, the MMA Podcast. I'm your host, as always, Hussein, and today we are talking about UFC 322. Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makachev, as well as Valentina Shevchenko taking on Weili Zhang. It's an awesome card. I'm pumped on it. You should be pumped on it. There's a lot of great fights on this card. I mean, we have two great main events at the top, and I don't throw away that word great around without, any prescience behind it. These are great fights. These are two double champ fights. You know what I mean? A champion is moving up to fight the champion above. In 3 out of 4 of the cases, you can make an argument for GOATs of their divisions. You can't make that argument for Jack Della Maddalena yet, but you can certainly make that argument for Islam Makachev, who has the most defenses of any lightweight champion. You can definitely make it for Zhang Weili, who's won the belt twice, has a lot of defenses, has beaten, Joanna and Jacek. She lost to Rose, but I don't think anybody can argue Rose is the GOAT. And Valentina Shevchenko, there's no argument. She's the GOAT at women's 125. So it's really interesting that we have such high-level matchups here at the top of the bill, and that the UFC didn't stop there. There's plenty of times, plenty of examples throughout the years of the UFC banking on 1 or 2 big fights at the top, and that's it. But this card, top to bottom, is stacked, dude. I mean, there's a lot of great fights on here. You got, the entire welterweight top 10 fighting, except for Ian Gary and Shavkat Rakhmonov and Bilal Muhammad. They're all there. Sean Brady versus Mike Morales. Leon Edwards versus Carlos Prates, some great fights. You got Beneil Dariush fighting Benoit Saint-Denis in a very fun action matchup between 2 explosive grapplers. Bo Nichols fighting, Roman Koplov's fighting, Aaron Blanchfield's fighting, Malcolm Wellmaker's fighting. This is one of those cards that has a little bit of everything, We got some fun matchups. We got some really, really relevant fights at the top. I mean, fights that will dictate how we talk about this sport in the future. You got some fun action matchups on the prelims, some fights that look like they're going to be quick finishes, some fights that look like they're going to be fun wars. You got some fights that look like, top 5 fighters going against each other, some prospects, some veterans. I'm pumped on this card, and without further ado, let's get into it. We're going to start with the main event, Jack Della Maddalena versus Islam Makachev. Now, this is a fight that a lot of people are split on the pick. I myself have been going back and forth on it. When the fight was first announced, I was picking Makachev with ease. Maybe not with ease, but I thought that Makachev would be able to pose some interesting problems to Jack Della Maddalena. And if you asked me about this fight a year ago, I would have definitely picked Islam, no problem. You know what I mean? But in that last year or so, we've seen Makachev deal with adversity by way of Alexander Volkanovski's defensive wrestling and striking prowess, as way of Renato Moicano's length. And, we've seen Jack Della Maddalena do very well against a very tenacious wrestler in Bilal Muhammad. You can argue that Bilal didn't wrestle enough in that fight, but he did shoot 11 times and he got stuffed most of them. I think all of them. Great win for JDM. And there's also been this shift in the MMA sphere, if I may. Fighters are learning how to approach these Dagestani wrestlers. Look at Paul Hughes versus Usman Nurmagomedov in the PFL. They had 2 fights. The first one, both of them, really, really close fights, really competitive fights, and fights where Paul Hughes was kind of showing this new meta. Not new meta, but a new approach to dealing with the Dagestani wrestler, and that is hitting the body, jabbing, level changing with them. JDM did a great job of employing that against Bilal Muhammad. Volkanovski employed it to a lesser extent against Makachev in the first fight. Not to a lesser extent, but he didn't, stay as principled to those things. He was also, trying to circle off and throw combinations. But what I'm talking about is pressuring the wrestler, hitting the body, jabbing the face, and level changing with them when they level change. Easier said than done, of course, but with Jack Della Maddalena, you can see him do that against Bilal Muhammad, and he does it with great success. When he goes to the body that often, if Muhammad, you can't All right, so here's the thing, right? You're fighting a wrestler, or let's say I'm a wrestler and I'm fighting you, right? You are throwing big wide hooks, trying to take my head off, big overhands, trying to, knock me out with one punch. It's very easy for me to just duck under those, you know what I mean? And get to your hips or to your ankles or anything. If you are hitting the body, if you're level changing with me, if you're staying tight and only jabbing, it's hard to duck under a jab. It's a lot harder to duck under a jab than it is to duck under an overhand. And it's very hard to duck under body shots. Like, it's almost impossible. You know what I mean? When you go for that body shot, if I go for the takedown, maybe you don't hit me. Maybe you hit me in the head or the collarbone or the shoulder. But more importantly, you have an underhook or, 70% of the way to one. Madalena used this effectively against Bilal Muhammad. It was genius. Paul Hughes used it very well against Usman Nurmagomedov. And I expect Madalena to employ that against Makachev here. Now, something that is interesting in this fight, you can oversimplify and say, hey, it's if it stays on the feet, JDM's going to win. If it goes to the ground, JDM's going to lose, or I guess you say that, Islam's going to win if it goes to the ground. In a roundabout way, yes, right? But Makachev poses a lot of interesting problems on the feet. I'm going to credit fellow MMA YouTuber MMA Che with this discovery because I didn't even think about it until I saw his video. But, when Madalena goes for those ducks and body shots and level changes, Makachev can blast free high kicks. And this is something that wrestlers have done for eternity. You know what I mean? It's hard for me to think of a great example right now. I guess Daniel Cormier would be a great example. Daniel Cormier would flick up high kicks whenever the fuck he wanted because what are you going to do? Shoot on him? Like, what are you going to do? Try to take him down off of one of those high kicks? No, you're not. You're not going to try to take down the Olympic wrestler. You know what I mean? So if you're Islam Makachev, why not throw high kicks? What are they going to do? Jack can counter them, but if he's already ducking down, it's going to be hard to counter. He's going to have to be focused on defense. You know what I mean? So that's an interesting technique dynamic there, right? Madalena goes to the body, Makachev goes for the head kicks. It's a pretty interesting dynamic. I'm excited to see how it plays out. I think on the feet, Jack definitely has the advantage. I think the jab is going to be money for him in this fight. Excuse me. We saw Makachev have a lot of trouble against Renato Moicano's jab. I think he even got dropped at one point by a right hand or something, but maybe it was a slip. And we saw him have a lot of trouble against Dustin Poirier and his jab. And Poirier's not he's a good boxer, but he's not as good a jabber as Della Maddalena. I'd argue Della Maddalena is the better boxer in general. But, so I'm really interested to see how the striking plays out. Now, you could, again, to bring up the grappling, Madalena did really well defending the takedowns of Bilal Muhammad. Obviously, Bilal, like we said, was not as tenacious as he usually is with those wrestling attempts. But, even when Madalena's been taken down before against guys like Gilbert Burns, he is really good at scrambling back to his feet. We saw him do a lot of crazy sweeps, a lot of, great scrambles to get back to his feet against Gilbert Burns. Of course, that will leave him open to a submission, like an arm triangle or a rear naked choke or something like that, where Makachev is really slick in those transitions. So that might not be the strength that we think it is. But I would bet that Jack's camp is going to be focused on defending the takedown more than anything. Not letting Makachev even get to that position. When Makachev does get to that position, I'm sure that they've been working a ton on defending the submissions on their way up. He's training with Craig Jones, who we know has a breadth of jiu-jitsu and grappling knowledge. And you're going to imagine that he's going to impart some of that onto JDM, which he has he has with Volkanovski and other great Australian fighters. So it's just such an interesting fight, man. I really don't know where it comes down to, and it's hard for me to picture Makachev kind of running through JDM. It's really hard for me to picture that. We haven't seen Makachev at 170, so we don't know what kind of monster he's going to look like here. This is going to be a really interesting matchup, and I think both guys present a lot of problems for the other one, and I think I'm going to take JDM, man. I feel like the jab is going to be really working for him. I think it's going to be, you could see either guy getting the finish. But I do feel like this fight more often than not will go to decision. I think both guys are just so tough. You know, it would be a shock if either one was able to make it look easy, I'll be honest. But that's not to say that either one can't get the finish, because both of them are incredibly potent finishers, you know? Makachev gets to the right positioning, he can definitely find a choke or some kind of submission on Madalena. Madalena just seems so defensively sound on the ground, though it's hard for me to picture that happening, you know? And, in theory, if Madalena can land big strikes on Makachev, who's to say he can't knock him out? He's knocked out plenty of welterweights, particularly when they get less mobile, which, again, I'll credit MMA for pointing this out, but if Madalena can use the leg kicks against Makachev, as Volkanovski did very well, who's to say he can't slow down the movement of Makachev and pin him to a corner and knock him out there? You know what I mean? Or even stop the fight on cuts. We've seen Makachev get a really bad cut across his eye over here against Poirier and against, I think it was Volkanovski also. And that cut can be opened up with a couple jabs, of course, or an elbow or something like that from JDM. So I'm really excited in this fight, and I'm really, going back and forth on it, but I am going to take the underdog in JDM. I think he's going to be able to get it done. I think he's going to put damage on Makachev's face with the jab. I think he should be able to defend most of the takedowns, and if Makachev does get this fight to the ground, I don't know if he's going to be able to find the submission. So if you feel like Makachev can win 3 rounds between the striking and the grappling, bet on him by all means. You know what I mean? Makachev by decision, I think, is a great bet here. I'm personally of the camp that I think that Madalena will be the one doing more damage in this fight, and I think that the judges are going to take that into account. I think there's a big shock when you see these Dagestani wrestlers face adversity on the feet. A lot of times, the judges will give the round to the other fighter if the Dagestani can't get the fight to the ground, regardless of what the fight looks like on the feet. For example, Conor McGregor versus Khabib Nurmagomedov, round 3, right? This is a round that Conor landed slightly more strikes than Khabib, but Khabib, in my opinion, landed the more damaging strikes. The problem was Khabib couldn't get the fight to the ground, so all the judges gave it to Conor. Another example would be Makachev versus Poirier. Round 4, I want to say, or round 2? One of those rounds. The fight was on the feet, and Makachev did a really good job on the feet, man. He was slipping, ripping the body. He was circling, he was landing kicks, he was landing punches. Poirier was doing the same, but Poirier defended a couple takedowns, and the crowd was like, whoa. And now it looks like Poirier wins the round. So if JDM can defend the takedowns and kind of change the narrative, change the optics of the fight, I think he can win rounds like that. And I think he can do a really good job, and I'm going to back my boy here. I think he's going to get it done. I hope he gets it done. I expect Jack Slack to put out a big article describing how to beat Makachev for JDM, specifically for JDM, because JDM is a Jack Slack podcast fan. He's been there for as long as I've known about Jack Slack. So, yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see how it shakes out. We have 2 of the greatest minds in the sport going at it, 2 of the best athletes in the sport going at it with completely different styles that are super interesting, and I'm fucking pumped on it. I can't wait. But we have a lot of other really good fights to talk about here, so let's go down the card. We got Zhang Weili versus Valentina Shevchenko. This is a tough one, too. This is a really tough matchup because we don't know what Weili's going to look like at 125. We know that Valentina has looked great. We know that she's also slowed down. She's had some trouble with fighters who can who can find opportunity in her lulls. You know what I mean? Alexa Grasso, able to jump on the back after that spinning back kick. Jennifer Maia getting that trip takedown and holding her down. Tyler Santos doing great work against her on the feet and on the ground. Even Manon Fiorot was having some good success against Valentina in certain exchanges until Valentina was able to get the fight to the ground where she dominated. And, I mean, she did knock her down, too, at one point. So, good on Valentina for turning back the clock there. The problem is here she's fighting Zhang Weili, who is super athletic and super well-rounded. And more than that, has great cardio, and more than that, has great game plans. She always comes to the fight with a good game plan. You'll notice this. You'll notice this throughout her career. Look at the fight against Tatiana Suarez. Now look at the fight against Yan Xiaonan. This is a completely different game plan. You're looking at somebody who, against Xiaonan, took her down repeatedly, beat her ass on the ground, put her in submission attempts, put her in compromising positions. Against Tatiana Suarez, whooped her ass on the feet, dog walked her. You know what I mean? Defended all the takedowns. Beat her ass up on the feet. Against Amanda Lemos, took her down at will. Beat her up on the ground. Outlanded her something like 400 to 15, I think it was. So Weili has a deep, deep bag of tricks. And she's super powerful and she's super explosive. She's super quick. Do you think that she can take down Valentina? Do you think, in your heart of hearts, do you think Zhang Weili can score takedowns on Valentina Shevchenko? Valentina Shevchenko is incredibly strong. For flyweight. For bantamweight, she was really strong. Now she's taking on a strawweight, who, yes, is the strongest strawweight. But she should be able to stop the takedowns, right? Right? You'd think so. You know what I mean? So, let's say this fight stays on the feet. That Weili can't get her down. I don't even know if Weili wants to get her down, right? Maybe Weili wants to strike with her. Maybe Weili thinks that she's quicker than Valentina, as Valentina is getting old. Maybe Weili uses the feints that Valentina bites on all the time, and Valentina's always looking for a counter, and Weili makes her swing at air. I don't know. But what I do know is that Valentina is going to be on the defensive in this fight. She's generally a counterpuncher. She's generally fighting on the back foot. I'll be shocked if she's the one pushing forward in this matchup. I think she's going to see what Weili brings to her, and I think she's going to go for defensive takedowns. I think Weili is a great grappler. I think she's a great wrestler. I think she's great everywhere. I think both of these women are great everywhere. They're both, they are number 1 pound for pound and number 2 pound for pound, depending on who you ask. You know what I mean? Where they are in those two positions depends on who you ask, but everybody agrees those are the 2 best women in the sport right now. So I'm fucking pumped on this fight. And it really comes down to a matter of tactics, and it comes down to a matter of the grappling. I think that's the big question. I think on the feet, both women can do good work. Weili is a little bit brutish in her approach on the feet, but I can see that working against Valentina. Valentina is very clean with her striking, and I can see that working against Weili. I can see her landing a lot of shit on the counter, spinning back kicks to the body, 2-5-2s up the middle, leg kicks. I think the leg kicks are going to be there for Valentina. I am just pumped on this fight, and I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm not going to bet on it. It's a pick'em fight, and I think that's very accurate. I think if you want to bet on any prop, bet on Valentina to land 2 takedowns. I think she'll get 2 takedowns in this fight. I don't know if she'll be able to do much with them, but I think she'll get them. Next, you got Sean Brady versus Mike Morales. Man, another crazy fight that I have no idea what's going to happen here. We got Sean Brady, the uber tenacious wrestler and phenomenal grappler who is so strong. This guy is so fucking strong. Look at his back, dude. His back is like Khabib's back or Islam Makachev's back. It's huge. It's like a turtle shell. And he draws Michael Morales, who is... what can you say about Mike Morales? This guy is so talented. He's so big. He's so athletic. But more than anything, I think what he brings to this game is fight IQ. This guy seems super present in every fight. He seems to be really understanding what's going on in the fight and where he needs to adjust mid-fight. And that's just something that's really fucking dangerous, especially when you consider that he hits hard as hell. Now, I haven't seen much of his jiu-jitsu game, but I know that that's where he started with martial arts. He only has 1 submission on his record, but you'll see in his fights, he's very smart in those positions. He's coming off of 2 first-round knockouts, and before that had 2 decision victories, and before that had 2 knockouts as well. So, I think this guy, he hits really fucking hard. He's good at stopping the wrestling. He has a 90% takedown defense. That's going to be really important in this fight. If Brady can take him down once or twice, he wins this fight because it's very hard to get up from Brady's takedown in his grappling game. So that's a big if. That's the only if, honestly. On the feet, Morales is light years ahead of Brady. Brady's boxing has improved tremendously over the last couple of years since getting TKO'd by Canelo at welterweight in Abu Dhabi. But, it really depends on if Morales can stop the takedown. If he can stop the takedown twice, if Brady can get 2 takedowns, he wins this fight. He'll take him down twice, hold him down for 5 minutes or 3 minutes, and win the fight. He'll beat him up on the ground bad. I would pick Brady to beat any welterweight on the feet or on the ground. The problem is, what if he can't? Morales has a 90% takedown defense. What if he can stop Brady's takedowns? What if he can create damage? What if he puts Brady on the back foot? What if he has Brady's back to the fence and he starts laying combinations on him? He will knock him out. Sean Brady's been hurt many times in these fights. He got hurt by Bilal Muhammad. He got hurt by, was it Jake Matthews that he fought? That tagged him, but he won anyway? Yeah, Jake Matthews. He's been hurt before. He has a couple fights where he just runs through guys, and he's looked like that recently. He ran through Leon Edwards. He ran through Kelvin Gastelum. Are you seeing a pattern amongst those two fighters? They're washed. Michael Morales is not washed. He's young. He's hungry. Brady's been beating old men. He's been cannibalizing old men. I don't know, man. It's a tough fight because I really think that Brady is a top 3 talent in the welterweight division. I really believe that. I think he's one of the best grapplers in the sport and certainly the best grappler at welterweight. But Mike Morales has the X factor, which is fight IQ and power and length. And it's just hard, man. It's really hard for me to pick this fight because I can see the fight going very well for Brady and then changing in a split second. So, I was picking Brady very confidently all week. Lately, these last couple days, I've really been questioning that. And I think I'm going to bet the over in this fight either way. Never mind. I'm not going to bet on this fight at all. Yeah, like I said, if Brady can get the takedown, he wins. If he doesn't, he's going to lose. He's going to get beat up on the feet by this guy, Morales. I'm personally not that high on Morales in terms of his technique, but he's improving every fight. We see him come in there and show vast differences from the last time out. That's because he's only like 25. How old is he? 26. This guy is fucking a student of the game. So I'm pumped on that fight, but I don't know what's going to happen. I won't be shocked either way. I feel like Morales can come out here and knock out Sean Brady in a round, and we'll all be like, oh, yeah, of course. Or Sean Brady will wipe the floor with Morales, and we'll be like, yeah, Morales wasn't that good. He showed flashes of brilliance, but when has he put together that kind of game plan that he can beat elite competition with? You know what I mean? We haven't seen it. Maybe he doesn't need it, though. But I am kind of getting Carlos Prates vibes from Morales, where it's like this guy, if he can't find that big shot, he might lose. But I don't know. We have to see. So I'm going to stay away from that fight. I do feel like the value on Sean Brady is there, though. At minus 130, I feel like this guy should be minus 300 against most of the division. But this is a really interesting matchup, so I think I'm just going to stay away. I hate to do this to you guys. You know what I mean? I hate to play the fence. But it's a really interesting fight, and who knows what's going to happen. Next fight, I'm a lot more confident in. We got Leon Edwards versus Carlos Prates. Leon Edwards all but looks like a man who does not want to fight anymore. Carlos Prates still has plenty of gas in the tank. This is a strikers matchup. Edwards should go for the takedowns in this fight. I don't know if he will. When have you ever been able to trust Edwards' game planning? Never. So I'm going to go with Prates here. I think this fight stays on the feet. I think Prates can knock out anybody. We've seen Edwards get hurt before. It's not like he's impossible to chin. It's more like he has really good defense. If Prates can create some chaos and land a big strike here, he can certainly put Edwards' lights out. And I think that's what's going to happen, and I'm going to take Prates by knockout here. Next, we got Beneil Dariush versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Interesting fight here. Beneil Dariush, well-rounded grappler. Beat Renato Moicano his last time out. I did not expect it to happen that way. He draws Benoit Saint-Denis here, who hits like a truck, has really bad defense on the feet, but on the ground is pretty strong, good wrestler. This is an interesting matchup because, prime versus prime, I would take Beneil in this fight 10 times out of 10. I think Dariush is a more slick striker, if you can call him that. I think on the ground, Benoit Saint-Denis is more tenacious, but also not as slick, again. I just feel like Benoit Saint-Denis has worse technique than Beneil Dariush. However, he has a much, much better chin. Dariush's chin is gone, and Benoit Saint-Denis hits pretty hard. Dariush hits pretty hard too, but again, Saint-Denis' chin is good, so I expect him, if they get in a brawl, to come out on top. Yeah, I don't like this fight for betting, I think I'm going to stay away from this one too. Listen, there's a lot of fights on this card that are not fun to bet on because they are fun to watch. That's really what it comes down to. You know what I mean? I won't suggest you guys bet on anything that you're maybe 60-40 on. You know what I mean? be positive, you know. I think betting the under 2.5 against Process is a good one, you know. I think betting that this fight doesn't go decision, Dariush and St. Denis, because, you know, let's say that St. Denis can't knock him out. Well, let's, you know, first primary most likely outcome is that St. Denis knocks him out, right? Let's say he can't knock him out. Who's to say he doesn't get absolutely exhausted and Dariush doesn't find a submission in the third round? You know what I mean? So, yeah, stay away from that one. Now, middleweight, we got a prelim to, you know, top the bill here. Bo Nickel versus Rodolfo Vieira. This is a fight I'm actually really confident in the underdog here. I see a lot of people picking Bo Nickel. I ask you why. You know, the guy has shown that he can wrestle, but he's not that good of a grappler on the ground, and his striking is extremely one note. All he does is throw overhands. Have we seen him show anything else? No. We saw him throw a bunch of overhands against Paul Craig on the feet. Then we saw him get exhausted against Rene de Ridder, who, you know, had a great game plan to exhaust him and break him down. Rodolfo Vieira, probably not going to have that same game plan, but what he does have is better technique on the feet. He can throw more than one strike. Is Bo Nickel going to try to shoot on Rodolfo Vieira, who's like, you know, however many time world champion on the ground? I don't think so. I think more likely Bo Nickel's going to use his wrestling in reverse in this fight and try to keep this fight on the feet, where he might win, but I think Vieira's going to win. I think Vieira has better technique on the feet. I like his boxing. I don't like his cardio, but I don't like Bo's either. So give me Vieira here at underdog odds at plus 200. I love it. Next, you got Roman Kopylov versus Gregory Rodriguez. Another fight that I'm pretty confident in the underdog here. Now, Rodriguez has a path to victory here if he goes for the takedowns. That's the obvious outcome, right? He should go for the takedowns. However, he, in his heart, wants to brawl. He loves brawling. And Kopylov is a very technical striker, and he's been improving his takedown defense. The problem is Rodriguez is huge. He's a big motherfucker, and he has good cardio for 3 rounds, you know? But I do expect Kopylov to be able to land the damaging strikes. I expect him to put a lot of cuts on Rodriguez's face with his jab, with his straight, with a head kick, you know. I think this is Kopylov's fight to lose. I think he can stop the takedowns. I think he can put some damage on the feet, and I think he might be able to knock out Gregory Rodriguez in round 3. So I'm going to go with Kopylov here on underdog odds, money line, and yeah, that's where we are. Then you have Aaron Blanchfield versus Tracy Cortez. This is another really interesting fight. Cortez, tenacious, always looking for damage in every position. Aaron Blanchfield, tenacious, and just wants to get the takedown. She loves the takedown. She loves the grappling game. Very much akin to Mike Morales and Sean Brady, now that I'm thinking about it. It's kind of crazy to put it that way, but Cortez doesn't have that earth-shattering power that Morales does, and she certainly doesn't have the takedown defense that Morales does, so maybe not the best comparison, but I would say Aaron Blanchfield very similar to Sean Brady. You expect Blanchfield to get this done. Cortez is one of those fighters who can pull something out of her hat, though, and Blanchfield has not looked as impressive lately as she did in the first few years of her career. I think she's kind of plateaued, I'm sorry to say. I'm a huge Blanchfield fan, and I hope she can pull this one out because she needs this win. But yeah, that's where I'm at. I think Blanchfield should get this done, but I wouldn't be surprised if Cortez pulls out a decision by way of more damage. Let's see what happens, though. And then you got Malcolm Wellmaker versus Cody Haddon. I love this fight. I love Wellmaker. I'm a big fan. Guy hits really hard. He has really slick boxing and traps on the feet. Cody Haddon, super well-rounded. If he can get this fight to the ground, I think he can do some good work here. This is a fun fight and one that I'm going to stay away from betting-wise, but I do feel like the Wellmaker KO streak may continue here, and betting on him by KO is not a bad idea. Kyle Dawkins versus Gerald Meerschaert. This is about as easy a pick on the card as I have. You got to take Dawkins by finish here, man. I mean, Meerschaert has looked worse and worse and worse over the years. Dawkins came back in the UFC and looked really good in his first fight back. And I think he's going to continue that streak and get it done here against Meerschaert. I'm looking forward to it. I want to see the Dawkins resurgence, and I think he's going to do it. Then you have Pat Sabatini versus Chepe Mariscal. This is another fight I'm really confident in. Chepe Mariscal should get this done. Pat Sabatini, incredibly fragile, but really good grappler. Chepe Mariscal, a very potent striker, and one of these guys who, again, finds damage in every position And he's a pretty good anti-grappler, honestly, a pretty good anti-wrestler. So I really like Mariscal's chances in this fight. He's one of these guys who's always looking for damage in every position, who's always, fighting in every position, who's really tenacious and just like he's a dog, man. He's a fucking dog. Chepe's a dog. And I think he's going to be able to stop the takedowns of Sabatini, or at least mitigate the damage on the ground, and then put real damage on the feet and win this fight. Probably by decision, but he could knock him out. So I'm going to go with Chepe Mariscal money line here at plus 110. And you got Angela Hill versus Fatima Klein. Logic should tell you that Fatima Klein should win here. I don't know if it's that cut and dry. I feel like Angela Hill is really good in the clinch. I think she should be able to stop the takedowns of Klein, or at least, defend a good amount of them. And I think she'll be able to put some damage on the feet, put some damage in the clinch. However, if Klein can just get this fight to the ground, it's going to be a short night for Angela Hill, or maybe a long and boring one where she just gets grounded to the mat. Klein is very talented on the ground. Her wrestling, I haven't seen a ton of, I don't think she's that good of a wrestler, but she's a good grappler. And it's not like Angela Hill has some remarkable takedown defense, but, I think she can land a lot of strikes here, and I'm excited for this fight. I don't know if I'm confident enough in Hill to put money on her, but I think she has a good shot here. Then you got Baisangur Sasarkayev versus Eric Makachev. Don't overthink it. This is a first-round finish for Sasarkayev, maybe second round, but they're going to try to set him up here for a finish here against Makachev. Then you got Vyacheslav Borshchev versus Mateusz Camilo. That fight just got added. I didn't see that before. We love Slava Claus. I'm not too familiar with this Camilo character. Let me take a gander. He lost to Gabe Green his last fight out. Okay. Not a bad loss, but that was his first fight in the UFC, so... Yeah, I don't really know where that guy stands, but if he can wrestle, he should be able to beat Slava Claus. Yeah, that's where we are in this fight card. Let's go down our quick picks for the evening. Now, I am going to be pretty conservative with this card because there's a lot of fights that I think can go either way, but I'm going to take Carlos Prates by knockout. I'm going to take Adolfo Vieira money line. I'm going to take Roman Kopylov money line. I'm going to take Malcolm Wellmaker. I'm going to take Chepe Mariscal, and I'm going to take Kyle Daukaus by finish. I'll throw in Sasarkayev by finish as well. So one more time, we're going to do Prates, we're going to do Vieira, Kopylov, Wellmaker, Daukaus by finish, Chepe Mariscal, and Sasarkayev by finish. So we have 7 picks for you, and you'll notice that I stayed away from most of the main card. A lot of those fights I feel can go either way, so I stayed away from them. Particularly the main and the co-main. I'm excited to watch those completely as a fan, where my bets are completely done for the evening. So that's where I'm at on this card. I think there is some betting value. I think my biggest locks are going to be Sasarkayev by finish and Kyle Daukaus by finish. I'll probably end up throwing like $20 on that together, just that. But we'll see what happens. I appreciate y'all. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much for listening. And let's hope we have as awesome a fight card as it looks on paper. I love you guys. Thank you so much. And, yeah, stay tuned for more. I'm coming out with more shorts down the pipeline, more long-form videos in the future, hopefully, and Patreon's coming soon. So I appreciate y'all, and much love. Peace out. Take it easy.